For the best chow chow and sausage dogs, don't forget to follow Daz_DB Bulldogs, a Leeds-based breeder, recommended by Scarcity. Some of you may remember on the 30th of April this year when the NCA released a statement about the arrest of somebody that was one of the most wanted in the UK. Alex Mail, 29 years old, was arrested in Lisbon trying to fly to Istanbul on a fraudulent passport. He was detained at Lisbon Airport, having arrived on a flight from Turkey. He was refused entry a few hours earlier on the Turkish border when they noticed the document. Mail from Western-super-Mare was added to the NCA's most wanted list in January after he went on the run following his arrest by the South West Regional Organised Crime Unit, also known as ROCU. This was part of Operation Venetic, and he is believed to have been part of a group that used the Encrochat network to sell drugs. He was also accused of money laundering and conspiring to acquire a firearm as part of his drug dealing. They then went on to say that he remained in custody in Portugal and he was facing extradition. NCA officer Phil Robinson said at the time that Alex was naive and he thought he could travel across borders and remain undetected by law enforcement. They then go on to say that they are happy that their international partners have worked with them in order to be able to return the fugitive. And the latest update on the 15th of October 2022 is that Alex Mail has been released by the Portuguese police without any charges and without any bail. This is of course a big embarrassment to the NCA, who believed that he was going to be extradited for Encrochat. This week it was reported by the Epoch Times that a spokesman for the NCA told them that they are aware that following a habeas corpus application to the Supreme Court in Portugal, Alex Mail's release was authorised following the expiry of his custody time limit. Habeas corpus is a Latin term and it literally means show me the body, and is a legal term for when a court orders that a person in custody be presented and either charged or released. They went on to say in the email to the Epoch Times that we are liaising with partners in the UK and Portugal to try to find out the implications of what this means in relation to returning him here to get justice. The details of how Alex came to be released are not yet clear, but the release comes as a major blow to the NCA, which heralded the arrest this year as a fantastic result. And this is really interesting because Portugal do have an extradition agreement with the UK, and the only reason they wouldn't do that if they didn't believe that it was justified for him to be extradited. And of course the NCA have said nothing about this in relation to their own websites or any major news sites being documenting it. If you're going to report your wins, you have to also talk about your losses, because a lot of people think this evidence is not very strong at all. And a prime example of how Encrochat is suffering more and more problems is the recent news coming from the French Supreme Court. Computer Weekly reported that the Supreme Court has rejected Encrochat evidence after lawyers questioned secrecy over the hacking operation. The Supreme Court has referred a criminal case that relies on evidence from Encrochat encrypted phone network back to the Court of Appeal after finding that the prosecutors failed to disclose sufficient information about the hacking operation. The court in Paris found that French investigators and prosecutors failed to supply a certificate to authenticate intercepted phone data and messages obtained from Encrochat phones, and this is required by French law. There is also an absence of technical data about the hacking operation, the court said, and the French police and prosecutors refused to disclose how a joint Dutch and French operation led to Encrochat. Defence lawyer Robin Binsard, co-founder of a law firm Binsard Martin, who took the case to the Supreme Court, said last night that the case would be reheard by the Court of Appeal to determine whether adequate legal guarantees were in place. The Supreme Court stated that in the absence of a certificate of truthfulness, the evidence covered by defence secrecy could not be legal. The case will be sent to another court to see if the certificate exists. In the meantime, there is no evidence of validity of evidence from Encrochat. So this is a really interesting development, and with the NCA recently in court in connection to also not revealing the details of how they obtained the Encrochat information, this really does raise questions on if this is going to escalate to the point where some of these cases, if not all of them, eventually get thrown out. The National Crime Agency in the UK worked with the Regional Organised Crime Unit and the Metropolitan Police and made 2,600 Encrochat arrests using data given to them by the French police. More than 1,380 people have been charged with offences and 260 of them convicted under Operation Venetic. This was the NCA's response to Encrochat, and they seized 165 firearms, 3,400 rounds of ammunition, 5,600 kilos of Class A drugs and 75 million in cash. And the main question about this whole hacking operation is whether it was legal for the French police to even give the NCA the information to be able to make these arrests. So these are some of the latest developments from around the world in relation to Encrochat, and I really appreciate you joining me, and I really want to hear what people have to say on this story. Don't forget to follow on Scarcity Studios on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter and Facebook, and send your stories to news@scarcitystudios.com.